Hey guys, it's time for another crappy aviation movie review. Haven't been able to do a lot of flying lately. If you've been watching the news, you know in Texas we had quite a bit of snow and ice and a lot of issues because we're not really prepared for that sort of thing. This is actually my kid's school, which is now closed for the rest of the year. We had to conserve water in case we needed it. A lot of people were without power, electricity, gas, etc. But we're on the other side of that now. We're recovered, but means flying was pretty much off the table for a couple of weeks. So I decided it was time to do another one of these movie reviews. Today's movie is called Turbulent Skies. It was recommended by one of my Patreon supporters named Neil McGovern. I asked channel supporters, give me some just horribly awesome aviation movies that are so bad you got to watch them. And they knocked it out of the park. This is probably one of the worst ones that I've seen. Before we even get into the plot or the characters or anything, we're just going to jump right in at the very first few minutes of it and show you how low they've set the bar for this film. So we start off in what appears to be a 737 that's clearly entered some light chop. All of the passengers are very nervous. It's a pretty scary time for these people, and they're really starting to panic.
How long before we land?
About an hour and a half.
All right, so let's go through this again. The passenger asks how long until we land. She says an hour and a half. Yeah, flaps and gear extended. So now the engine catches fire, which we can see here depicted when we look through this window by these amazing, superb special effects. It's unbelievable how real the fire is on this film. So what is the captain going to do? Obviously, we're going to shut down the engine.
Captain, shut down the engine. We'll cut off the fuel feed to the fire. Shutting down number one.
So we can see the captain's going to go throttle down the engine by shoving the throttle full forward. I don't know, maybe on this plane if you're a commercial pilot, does that shut the engine off? I'm under the impression it does. All right, obviously this is a stick shift. All right, stay with me, guys. We haven't even gotten to what I'm building up to. We're going to get to cast and plot and all that. But okay, so the captain's turned off the engines. He's got no choice but to put the plane down. He's going to set it down on a stretch of road. I want you to pay close attention to this next part and let me know if you spot the continuity error. That's right, the 737 converted into a 727 mid-flight. If that ever happens to you on a plane, you're going down for sure. One more piece of housekeeping before we get into the plot. I know this is going to be long, but just stay with me. It's worth it. Here's what we want to talk about is the cast. And I've put together this little family tree to help explain who's in the movie and what role they're playing. You kind of need to know that so you know what's going on when I talk about the plot. First, we have people on the ground, and we've got people in the sky. 6 people in this film that actually matter. The first character is this guy that looks like Buck Rogers. His name is Casper Van Dane. And if ever they make a movie about Tom Brady and Daniel Tosh isn't available, Casper definitely gets the part. Next, we've got Mrs. Buck Rogers. She's going to be in the air for most of this movie, and she's played by Nicole Eggert, who you probably know from Baywatch, but if you're my age, she's always going to be Jamie Powell from Charles in Charge. Buck Rogers and Mrs. Buck Rogers work for the same company, and the premise is that they've invented this autopilot called the CD-70, which is a whole lot like the S-Tech 55 that I fly with in the Cirrus, only it's a little more self-aware and a bit of a kind of a ripoff from Howl from 2001: Space Odyssey. But either way, she's in the air, he's on the ground. So also in the air with Baywatch is Discount Rob Lowe. Seriously, if you bought a refurbished Rob Lowe off of Craigslist, this is exactly what you would expect to get. A lot of people in this movie look like they came straight from Alibaba, so we're just going to have to deal with a lot of lookalikes that are coming. Stick with me. Next, we got Mr. Rob Lowe. This is Discount Rob Lowe's dad, and he's on the ground. So dad owns the company. Buck Rogers and Jamie Powell built the autopilot, and Discount Rob Lowe's in charge of sales and marketing. And as with every aviation movie out there, we got a couple of fresh-faced kids on the ground that know how to solve problems using a replica of whatever it is that's broken in the sky. So this is our on-ground geek squad. All right, so we're going to get on to the plot, and thank you for sticking with me this far. I know we're not even getting started yet, and this is long, but it's interesting, and just stick with me. It's going to be... Have you subscribed yet? Have you subscribed? Could you just do it down there? All right, I'm going to talk about that. Please. All right, so the plot. So what we have is we have these people who have invented this autopilot called the CD-70, and it's going to be the first autopilot can fly an unmanned aircraft. We've been doing this for years, guys. Anyway, they invented it, and they're unveiling it to a group of people who are investors. Discount Rob Lowe decides, why don't we go ahead and invite all these people on to the maiden flight, the test flight, where we test this thing out for the first time, because it's so awesome and perfect. What could go wrong? So we've got our main characters on the plane, we've got the investors, and we've got the news media on the plane, and then they do bring in 2 real pilots, played by not quite Lloyd Bridges and what's probably the director's son. These guys are going to take the plane off, and then at a certain point they hand it over to to the CD-70. Once the plane's in the air, it's worth mentioning that there's a lot of exterior shots of the 747 in flight. It took me maybe 5 minutes of Googling to find the stock footage that they bought and used for this video. And so it's very comforting to me that no, these filmmakers and I have about the same budget. So we got the 2 pilots in here. They're talking about the CD-70 autopilot and what it's going to do for them, and whether it's going to replace them or not, yada, yada, yada. And they start talking about what all it controls, and it controls everything down to the temperature of the aircraft. Young pilot notices that the air temperature is not correct.
So, what temperature does Mr. Devane like his cabin set at?
68 chilly degrees.
Yeah, this thing's set at 88.
Yeah, you're right.
It's creepy.
As a 20-year IT professional, I can tell you the number one way to fix invalid data in a system is with the old double tap on the space bar. That's when I call people and they call me, got a problem. I was like, if you double tap the space bar, if you didn't double tap the space bar, why do that and then call me? But of course that fixed the problem. So I expect everything that goes wrong with the autopilot, you'll just double tap the space bar and we'll be fine. But this is the only time they try that. All right, so we're about 30 minutes into the movie, and now Hal just decides to go crazy and start doing horrible things. He loses connection with the command center. The nerds on the ground are struggling, trying to figure out what's going on. For some reason, this girl's looking at a medical chart while they're troubleshooting the autopilot. I don't know what that has to do with anything, really.
You said they were headed off course. Where exactly are they headed?
Right now, over the Midwest. No.
What is it?
There's a massive storm front, and they're headed right for it. Captain Langford, come in. Anybody, come in.
So things are getting really turbulent. The aircraft is now flying through the storm. ATC is using some unorthodox radio talk, just shouting out Captain Langford, trying to get his attention.
Captain, I checked our flight path 3 times for weather before we left.
We're not on our flight path.
Captain, look!
We're headed right into it. What's this computer doing?
It's no use. The plane is still locked into the computer system.
The pilots are frantic up in the front of the plane, trying to fight the computer, trying to keep the plane on course and flying smoothly. They're doing anything they can, hitting any buttons, including what appears to be depressurizing the plane. Is that what those do? Someone who's a commercial pilot, is that what he just tried to do? It looked like, I don't know. They're just hitting switches because they're actors. They're not pilots. It's fine. All right, as things start to go awry, the computers are blowing up, and we get a quick glimpse at the panel here in the aircraft. And I want to point out that we took off with only 82 pounds of fuel. A quick Google search looks like 747s burn about 5,000 pounds per hour in cruise, so maybe they were just going to do a lap around the pattern. I don't know. But I'm a little concerned now.
All right, there's a special code that will shut down everything on the CD-70.
Hang on, let me get over there. I'll put you on speaker.
Almost. Got it.
For all intents and purposes, this autopilot is now self-aware. A lot of people keep referring to it while they're trying to fix it as, oh no, it's got its defenses up, it's fighting me.
Hi Tom, where are you? Listen, the security systems are engaged. Any attempt to dismantle the computer may be deemed as a hostile threat. You've got to be careful. The CD-70 will do anything to protect itself. Anything.
Things are getting bad, so now we have Mrs. Rob Lowe rush up into the cockpit because her company built the system, so maybe she can, I don't know, somehow help out. She gets up there. Pilot number 2 gets struck by lightning. Now we got no pilots, and we're being flown through a storm by a crazy autopilot. Now the plane starts to descend. Will it ever stop? Yo, I don't know.
Tom, the plane's descending. It looks like we're dropping down below the storm clouds.
What's your altitude? It's the gauge right next to the throttle.
It says 20,000 feet and dropping.
Does it feel like a controlled descent?
Yeah, I think so. Seems to be leveling out at 10,000 feet.
Now the plane is stabilized at 10,000 feet, as we can see on this comically huge altimeter. I would be way more worried about the 0 knot airspeed shown here on what appears to be a very realistic airspeed indicator, but we're not going to focus on that right now. The plane is now leveled out at 10,000 feet. That's going to be really important to remember here in about 2 minutes. So since the autopilot's gone crazy, no more radio communications, and then we learn that this plane is headed for Cleveland, and we're going to have to shoot it down unless we can regain control. So now we have some generic general talking to a knockoff Vin Diesel, letting him know what his mission is. They're going to scramble some F-15s, which look a lot like F-16s, but it's been a while since I've read any books on military aviation aircraft. But anyway.
And I want a squadron of F-15s ready for briefing in 15 minutes.
You are cleared for takeoff on runway 3. Good luck, Charlie Tango 1. Roger that.
So the F-15s are en route to go shoot down this plane before it lands on Cleveland and wipes out millions of people. And then Buck Rogers has this really great idea. He can fix this problem if only he can get on the plane. And now we're leading up towards the climax of this film. How are we going to get Buck Rogers on the 747 so he can fix this using the information that the Geek Squad has, which appeared to be just sort of shoving a wrench in there wildly, and then you can take over control of the aircraft.
Come on. What if I short the main circuit? It worked!
Somebody help!
What's wrong with this plane?
The oxygen's been cut off.
What do we do?
You're gonna have to use your oxygen masks. Oh my god. Charles! Charles, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Charles! Let me help you. Here, breathe. Breathe. Let's get him to a seat. Here, hold this. We're gonna take you to a seat, okay?
So now we've lost oxygen to the airplane. People are starting to get hypoxic and pass out and visibly can't breathe. This is when I like to remind you that the airplane's at 10,000 feet. This isn't a problem at all. So how do we get Buck Rogers on the airplane? If you ever saw the movie Executive Decision, and I know the directors of this movie did, you can take another airplane and fly it up under the belly of a 747 and extend the tunnel, and they can climb right through it into the belly and save the day. So the particular aircraft we're going to use for this one is an SR-71, I think, because there's a lot of stock footage available of it, and so it was easy to get. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take an SR-71. We're going to grab Mr. Buck Rogers, and we're going to fly it up under the belly of the 747. And Mr. Buck Rogers is going to climb through this comically flimsy hatch with no latch or handle or lock that I guess is just held in place by gravity. I want to make sure he brings his oxygen so that he doesn't get hypoxic and pass out at 10,000 feet. Would they even consult the pilot when they made this movie? Probably not. Once Buck Rogers gets on the airplane, he sees Mrs. Buck Rogers and, of course, asks her, is there anyone that can fly the plane? She says no. And so he says, well, you're going to have to do it.
Is there anyone on this plane who can fly it?
I don't think so.
Get in the captain's chair. You're gonna have to do it.
Do what?
Whatever it takes.
Okay. So Buck Rogers has the information that the geeks provided him so he can disable the autopilot. Now all Miss Buck Rogers has to do is land the 747 by herself.
Now you should have the runway in sight.
Yeah, I do.
All right, so now she's approaching the airport, and the guy says you should have the runway in sight, and it looks like we are just ready to touch down. Wait, no, never mind. We're back at 10,000 feet. Sorry. That's probably a zoom window lens on the 747.
Okay. Now lower the landing gear. Hit the knob on the dash to your right.
All right, we got the gear down. Now we got to put the flaps down. Super easy to do, not a problem.
Push the flaps.
Sam.
Tom, it's not working.
Okay, we're unable to get the flaps down because they're stuck for some reason. I think we're cool here as long as we don't see any sort of exterior shots of the plane with full flaps, because that would just be a continuity error we wouldn't want. All right, so we got full flaps, it appears, and the gear is down, and we're actually right over the top of the runway.
Got it. Got it. Pull the flap.
So that's pretty much it. She lands the plane. It's a beautiful, picture-perfect landing. No issues at all. They get the plane shut down, and very predictably, a bunch of angry people walk by Discount Rob Lowe and give him a piece of their mind with some superior acting skills. And then you can guess he's going to get slapped by the girl. And smirking Buck Rogers, and they walk away into the sunset. So that's the crappy aviation movie review. I'm going to start doing some more of these. I think this video is definitely worth the $3.99 rental fee on Amazon Prime, or if you can find it other places. It's terrible, but it's awesomely terrible. So watch it. Thank you for watching this video, and subscribe and all that good stuff, and catch you in the next one. You guys fly smart. Click this link to see the most recent video upload. Click this link to see a video that YouTube thinks you might like. Click this link to subscribe to my channel.